did just get back from watching the new Garfield animated movie, and this time around, we're following Garfield when he comes back in contact with his father, Vic. From here, the reunion gets a little complicated when they're forced to perform a heist, one involving 12,000 gallons of milk required to pay off a debt for Garfield's father. That's all pretty much said without giving any spoilers to you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. If you were as confused as I was when I heard that plot, welcome to the Garfield movie. So let's talk a little bit about Garfield. So obviously he's been a big staple in pop culture for a long time. We all love the lasagna eating, Monday hating cat. But I guess depending on your age range, you either know him from his comic strip, just showing up doing little funny bits here and there, or the Bill Murray live action CGI hybrid movie. That's pretty much my introduction to Garfield. And although I'm not going to say that was one of my favorite childhood films, I remember thinking it was okay. I had a good enough time with it, but I bet if I popped that sucker in today, I would not be having as much fun as I did when I was a kid. But even then, that didn't like transform me into like a Garfield lover. I was like, dude, the fat cat who just wants to sit and be lazy. Finally, my spirit animal. No, I was just like, okay, orange cat, that's nice. I didn't even bother to check out the second movie where he goes to London. I had enough Garfield in my life. So whenever the announcement came for this animated movie, I was like, okay, well, let's see what we can do with Garfield in modern age. Was for sure surprised when I heard Chris Pratt would be the voice, not the person I would decide, but it's become a law lately that Chris Pratt can voice whoever he dang pleases. So all this to say, I went into the Garfield movie with just expectations bottom of the ground. Watching the movie, it's fine, kinda. The disclaimer always needs to be said. I'm understanding that these are kid movies and the target is for a kid audience, but I always hate when that's the ultimate defense for someone like me who's an adult that didn't enjoy the movie as much. Yeah, okay, of course there are times like that, but are we just gonna ignore all the other times animated films are made targeted for kids and they still end up being beloved movies for adults as well? Like, is that not the preferred goal we would like with these movies? Do you think 7-year-olds are just walking up to the theater going ticket for one and watching it by themselves with no parental supervision? No, there's an angry mom and pop who dragged them there that have to sit through this too. This review's for you, okay? But let me at least get into some of the good with the movie. I'll say the film is innocent enough. Like, there's nothing really in here that was offensively bad, where I was like, oh my god, turn this thing off, checking my watch every couple of minutes, like, get me out of here. No, it pretty much delivers on what you expect. Garfield with some hijinks, eating a ton of food, acting lazy, hating Mondays. Odie working as Garfield's sidekick I found really funny, gets a couple of standout moments. But if I really had to give like a standout character, it has to be John in the movie. When Garfield and Odie and his dad go on their own separate adventure, we keep cutting back to John's own adventure, and that honestly had to be the funniest part of the movie. Probably because a lot of the jokes centered on John are aimed for the parents who are taking their kids to this film. So it was a lot of jokes that are going to go over the head of kids, nothing like adult nasty jokes, but the type of mundane adult jokes where you're like waiting too long on a customer service call, or being that person who lives alone with only pets. Just like innocent, fun family humor, and the John stuff was just like actually the funniest part of the movie for me. I also even want to give the movie props for having a small sentimental message about, you know, treating animals with respect. There's a little subplot that goes on here involving a bull and a cow. It never gets overbearing or heavy-handed to the point where you're like, man, they're really sending a message here. But I mean, there was something there about, you know, treat animals with respect. That along with Garfield trying to help rekindle a lost love. I was like, okay, that's kind of sweet. But aside from that, I mean, the rest of the movie was just kind of a snooze fest for me. There wasn't really anything in here that I felt made this movie stand out, or anything you'll even remember a day after you watch it. A lot of that I think has to do with just how safe a lot of the humor was. I understand it's a family movie, but even in this family environment, because my theater was packed with little kids, moms, dads, all that kind of stuff, a lot of jokes just left the crowd silent. One thing that definitely annoyed me also about this movie that is just commonplace with some animated films sometimes is they try a little too hard to be modern or to like update the character. Obviously, we haven't had a mainstream Garfield movie in a long time, and a lot has changed since the Bill Murray times. We have cell phones, we have apps, we have the internet, we have drones, and The movie just really tries to throw that in there, but it really comes off just so painfully dated, even though it's trying to stay updated with our times. Like within the first 10 minutes, somebody's trying to tell John to download Tinder and Bumble so that he can find someone to be with, get on them dating apps. The villain at one point is like recording Garfield getting scared, and she's like, upload that so we can go viral. And so many more instances like that with some really bad product placement. Like, it's one thing to have product placement in a live action movie, and it's like, okay, maybe you can excuse the Krispy Kreme in Power Rangers, or maybe someone being gifted an Olive Garden gift card for saving the world. When it's in an animated film, it feels that much more crazy, because it's like somebody had to animate this logo and keep it as boring as realistic as it is in our world to then fit the vibrant, colorful, animated style of this film. And they do that with things like Olive Garden, Walmart, FedEx, so many more. And when those logos are just on the screen, you're like, am I watching a movie or a tie-in commercial? But I think the biggest thing to me is just the story overall was just not that interesting. I guess it's really hard to come up with something fun to do with Garfield when the entire basis of his personality and character is just eat lasagna, hate Mondays, done. But even with that just being like your main basis, you should take that as the opportunity to get like super creative, do something fun, and just this whole plot of him meeting his long lost dad, going through that reconnection, then having to do a heist involving this like dairy farm to get like thousands of gallons of milk. Oh, and then let's throw in this cow couple that Garfield needs to help rekindle love. Like, honestly, it got to the point where I started to think, I don't know if this was a Garfield movie to begin with. It feels like somebody just had a cat movie in mind, and they were like, can you just make the main cat Garfield and we'll call it a day? Because that's honestly what it felt like. This just does not feel very Garfield-esque. What is there even to say also about Chris Pratt's interpretation of Garfield? I guess it's fine. I don't want to be a Chris Pratt hater. The guy seems nice. But if his biggest offense is just being annoying for voicing several famous characters, celebrities have done much worse, man. But yeah, admittedly, the voice doesn't sound distinct, and it just comes off like a lazy way for the studio to be like, hey, Chris Pratt's in a movie. Y'all love Chris Pratt. Watch this movie. So yeah, I think for sure there's going to be kids out there that get enjoyment out of this. I think it's definitely going to have to be those 5 or below. Anything other than that, I think you're just paying for an expensive nap at a theater. So for the Garfield movie, I'm going to give action 2.5 stars. The animation is nice in the film, and you do get like a pretty cool drone battle at the end of this movie with Garfield and the villains. But like Garfield himself, there's not as much movement as you would like from an animated film to keep your attention. Comment in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. There's a lot of gags and jokes in here, all innocent, family friendly, but only so few of them actually land and will get you giggling. Most of the time, a joke will just happen and the audience will be awkwardly silent. I wish they could have been a little bit more clever with the jokes, but after like the 5th, hey, Garfield's fat joke, I don't know what much else is left in this movie. Drama in the film, I'm also going to give it 2 stars. I'll give them props for attempting to make the story sentimental, with Garfield reuniting with his father and this cow and bull story. But even with that, the entire plot of the movie just feels so random and not really Garfield-like. Heart in the movie, I'll give no stars too. There's nothing really terrifying in here. Although I will say there's a dog in this movie. At least I think he's a dog, and he just has like a ton of extra skin. And I don't know why, it just grossed me out. It creeped me out, man. I'd love to know if anybody else agrees with me. And suspense in the movie, I'm gonna give it 1 star. It's pretty predictable to where it's headed. It's so innocent and family friendly. You know nothing bad's really ever gonna happen. Casual moviegoers, I'm gonna give it a B+. Cinephiles, I'm gonna give it a C-. And critically, I'm gonna give it a C-. The Garfield movie is fine enough to be watched at home to rent.
That'll do, donkey. That'll do.
Again, that's just my opinion on the movie. I'm sure I'm going to get tons of Garfield haters in here just yelling at me, and I'm glad you're that happy with the character. But hopefully in the next interpretation, they can get a little bit more creative. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.